Say my name. Say my name. You're goddamn right.
Oh my god, we're fucking rich.
All right, that's Breaking Bad. It's a great TV series. I am going to preview and tell you about what I thought about the first episode. And I got my buddy Steven here. He's going to ask me a few questions. And take it away. What do you want to know?
So I'm really curious about the first time that you ever started hearing about Breaking Bad as a TV show. Where were you in your life? Were you doing meth at that point? And what was kind of your initial impression as you started hearing about the show?
Okay, in 2008 was when the TV series Breaking Bad came out, and I wasn't watching it. I was too busy slinging dope out on the streets, and in 2007 is when they took Sudafed off the shelves, so me and my friends couldn't make it anymore, and we had to rely on dealing with cartels, and it was a rough time. All the free money that we were making is gone. I used to collect up $40 worth of pills that would make me 5 ounces of methamphetamine, and so that was gone. And so because of that, I lost my house, I lost my business, and my job. So it was a really rough time. So I had to keep on trying, and eventually I did get back in the swing of things, although the meth that we were getting from the cartels was not as strong, and it was more of a irritated buzz instead of a happy buzz. That's my best way I can explain it to you. I heard about Breaking Bad, and one time my oldest daughter asked me, "Hey, you been watching Breaking Bad?" And I kind of snapped at her like, "No, I don't watch that shit," because I really wasn't prepared for anybody to ask me that. So that was that, and I never did watch it. And then I went on for another about 10 years. Well, I went 17 years in total selling meth, and when I got clean in 2017, after about a year, I finally watched Breaking Bad, and it was the best show I've ever seen. It was pretty cool. Yeah, we're gonna preview the first episode, and got any other questions?
Yeah. So Walter White, from my understanding, first got into the business when he saw a drug bust that a sort of a family friend had made, where they got $700,000 in cash from busting this meth lab. So what got you started? Was it the money, or was it something else?
What got me started was I didn't start doing meth till I was 35 years old. I did what they called crank. It was biker crank back in the 90s, and I tried some of that there. Then another friend of mine that introduced it to me, the crank to me, he lost his job and lost his wife and everything else, and it kind of scared me away from it for a long time. But then an old high school buddy come in and introduced this stuff to me, and then I found out that he was making it, and it was nothing like the biker crank. And I was 35. I was working 2 jobs, my own business, and then 8 hours at my other job, and I was getting really worn out. And he introduced it to me, and yeah, it gave me it was like my fountain of youth, and public awareness was not really there yet, and I had been drinking for the last 20 years, and I had 3 DUIs, and this stuff that he made took the thirst of alcohol away from me. So initially I thought that I was gonna it made me quit drinking, which was cool. I told everybody, "Hey, I quit drinking," and my mom and Dad were so happy and this and that. So my plan was to do meth, and then a couple months or 6 months quit doing meth, and then I'd be good and could continue to drive my car. And but it didn't work out that way, and I started down this rabbit hole that it was methamphetamine, and yeah, we'll be exploring my story as the episodes go on.
So, Walter White was very passionate before he started getting into the meth world about chemistry and the different sciences, and that really helped him to succeed in what he was doing. Did you have any sort of passions like that at the time, and how did they help you sort of progress forward in the meth world?
Well, my business that I had, and it was going for like 5 years straight now, and it was really strong. It was neighborhood bike shop. I was the bike guy. I fixed bicycles for everybody in town, and I was self-taught. I could build my own wheels. I learned how to do that. So I still am an expert, a bike expert, and I could relate to Walter White because he was a science nerd, and I was the bike nerd. Then meth come along, and my friend that I've known since I was a little kid. I've known him for a long time. He's really trustworthy, and he's pretty cool. So we started this relationship. He walked into the bike shop wanting a bicycle, a BMX bike for his kid. I told him, well, it just so happens I build the fastest bikes you can buy. So I built him a bike for his kid, and his kid started, getting trophies and stuff, and word traveled, and me and him became closer friends, and pretty soon I was making meth with him and a few other guys, and then I was introduced to the rest of the town meth heads, I guess. That's how we started.
So, talking about getting introduced to the town meth heads, Jesse Pinkman was sort of Walter's first connection into that world. What did you think of his character? Were there any similarities that you saw with your own life and with Jesse?
Yeah, his character I thought was spot on. The way he carried himself, he was self-centered, but not as self-centered as in real life. I mean, the narcissism is just off the charts with people doing meth. Yeah, he was spot on. But one thing that they didn't have, that they didn't show, and they didn't have to or didn't want to because it wouldn't have fit into the plot. But he would have had friends or fellow users or using friends all over him. They would have been mowing his lawn for him. They would have been trying to fix his car, putting in stereos. They would have been. It's really aggravating, but yeah, that wouldn't have really fit into the plot.
Right.
So, but yeah, everything was pretty right on, except for his car. The lowrider with the fancy paint jobs and the Captain Cook license plate. No, a real meth slinger or cook, they would have just a plain Jane car. Not rusty and no dents, nothing that's going to draw attention to themselves, but they're going to have it plain on the outside, and on the inside it's going to be decked out stereo, all plush. Everything's going to be top of the line. Your GPS, your everything top of the line. Good motor in it, fast motor, but yeah, pretty low key otherwise. But yeah,
that's cool. They had sort of early run-ins with the Cartel, with Crazy 8 and some of the other characters. And I know that you said you dealt with the Cartel a little bit. How do you think the show portrayed the Cartel? Was that a good showing of it, or is it a lot different from how they showed it?
It's probably the way it is down there, close to the border, but up here in the Midwest, it's not like that. They would have their two runners would bring it up, and they would hand it off to somebody halfway, like maybe Nebraska or something, maybe, and then that person would bring up the pile of meth up to Minneapolis, and then it would be distributed throughout the Midwest.
When we first start to meet Jesse, we kind of catch him in the middle of a drug bust, right?
Yeah.
So he slipped out of that okay. How realistic is that?
Well, the first thing that was going through my mind when I saw him drop out, when he fell out of the window and got away, it reminded me, I mean, I actually laughed out loud about it because when I was 28, I went to Wisconsin to visit my brother to help him out for a couple weeks. I ended up staying there 3 years, but so I got a job, and I was at this time I was selling a little bit of marijuana. Actually, no, I wasn't selling any, but I was smoking it, and I had to get some from the people down there, and I didn't know anybody, but so I got a job at a restaurant, and the dishwasher was a 16-year-old dishwasher, and he was a big kid. He was bigger than I was, and he could actually go to the bars with us, and so he'd drink with us and stuff, but he had all the weed, and he was only in high school. So one Friday night, he called work where we worked. There was no cell phones back then, so one of the waitresses said, "Hey, Joe, so and so's on the line." So I went and I talked to him, and he was like, "Hey, can you buy me a case of beer when you get off work?" I said, "Sure, I'll meet you at the grocery store." And so I went to the grocery store, and I went in, got a case of beer for him, and I go, "Hey, can you find me a dime bag of weed or something?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "Well, you got it on you?" He said, "No, we're right across the street over here." So I said, "Okay, I'll go up and have a beer with you, and then I get some weed from you." So now here I believe I was 27 at the time, and we go into this apartment. We walk up to the third floor. We go inside. And the kid says, my friend's mom is sleeping in the other room, so be quiet. I said, "Okay." So we go through the kitchen. It's all dark and it's really quiet. And we go into this other bedroom, and I walk in, and there was at least 12 kids in there. And they were, 13, 14, 16-year-olds. And my friend was 16, but he was a big 16-year-old. So here I am with all these little kids, and they're sitting around drinking beer, and I said, and they gave me a beer, and I said, "Hey, can you get that weed for me?" And so they gave me a bag, they sold it to me, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just, at this point, I'm sitting on a weight bench, because I mean it's hot in there, and there's no seats, and the only place that was for me to sit down was on a weight bench with two other guys, and I'm just going to slam my beer and I'm going to get the hell out of there. All of a sudden there's a knock on the door, and someone goes out there and peeks out in the peek hole, and he comes back, and at first they're all going, "Fuck, who's that? It's cops, and we're all like, "Oh shit," and I'm like, "Fuck." So then he comes back and goes, "Oh, no problems." 3 more kids come in. So I'm like, "Holy fuck, I gotta get out of here." Right?
Yeah.
So then another knock at the door, and I go out, and they go out there to see who it is, and this time they come back and goes, "It's the fucking cops." So I'm going, "Holy shit." So they started piling out this third-story window, and they're just jumping out, these kids. I'm going, "Fuck, what am I gonna do?" I took my bag of weed, I threw it in the closet, and I figured I was gonna hang from the window and fall down and right into the cops' hands,
Right.
So they're all piling out, and I was the last one out, and I hung on there, and I dropped down, and I turned around. There's no cops, and right there is my car. Right in front of me is my car. So you know how you go into an apartment building, you're kind of discombobulated, you don't know where you are. So I dropped down, I turned around, there's my car. I jump in my car, start it up. There's a 70 Biscayne, like an Impala, and 3 on the tree, 6-cylinder. I thought it was cool. So anyways, I get in this car. I'm going, "What the fuck is going on here?" So I'm driving, and there's kids literally running everywhere through the neighborhood. I'm going, "Holy shit." So I drive home. Actually, I drove right to the bar, and I went to the bar and thanked my lucky stars. I think I slammed like 4 shots of whiskey, and so I called up my buddy and I go, hey, what the hell happened over there? And he goes, well, they busted one kid there, and he had like, he said he had 12 hits of acid on him, and then they found my bag of weed, and no shit, I was from Minnesota. I wasn't registered there, and so here I was, a 27-year-old with a bunch of kids from out of state, and they had a bunch of acid.
Oh, no.
Now, in them days, in the late 80s, they were literally giving away life sentences for having acid.
Yeah, it's
like a sheet of acid.
It's like a felony a tab, right?
Yeah, it's bad. Like, yeah. So it's like, that's the first thing that popped in my head when I saw him drop out of that window. And
Right.
like, going, holy shit, this series is going to be good. That's what I was thinking, you know. So then, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So it's reminiscent of you dropping out of the window then.
Yeah.
That's cool. So in real life, coming that close to, getting busted with that much, do you think that it might have kind of scared him into a different way of life? It would have been the reality check he needed to sort of steer clear of the meth thing for a while, or?
Well, you would think so. That's what everybody would like to believe. But like, before I got busted, the last time I got raided 3 times, and you would think, well, after the first time being raided, you think, well, they're wise to you, so now it's about time to give it up and get a real job and and move on with your life. You got your family and all this stuff. But when you're on meth, it doesn't work that way. You're addicted to it, and what it does is it empowers you. You're like, fuck the cops. I'm unstoppable.
You feel invincible.
And you feel invincible, and now all your peers are impressed that they didn't find nothing. They start to think that you're unstoppable too. So they feel safe, and then, like, in my mind, I was raised Catholic and stuff, so I'm thinking that God has protected me or something in my mind. It's like I'm righteous.
Righteous.
I felt I'm righteous because one fact is that I never introduced the drug to anybody that didn't already smoke it.
Right.
So in my mind, I thought that's why I was righteous. He was looking out for me. It was believe me, I was pretty sick. I was an addict, and yeah, that's the way they think. Yeah, you feel empowered, and you don't want to quit. You just now it becomes a game of you against them, and who's smarter, and you start to think that you and the police are kind of, in my mind, this is what I thought, that you're playing a little game of I gotta keep a close eye on everything, and you can't let down your guard, and they're doing the same thing. They have to. It's like you're playing the same game with each other, but at least that's what you think in your mind. All kinds of crazy shit. But yeah, when you're on meth, there's all kinds of crazy thoughts, and then you're dealing with people around you that are trying to rip you off, and yeah, it's a hell of a way to live. Yeah.
So another thing I saw when I was first watching the show is I noticed they got an RV to do their cooking in. Did you ever have any sort of like a mobile cooking base, or why would they have done that?
I've heard of that. But I thought it was more of a made up story. People would have a way to do it in their trunks or something, but no, I never actually saw one. But there was a lot of problems with that. For one, I've been to Arizona, and there's no humidity, which produces a very good product. The humidity As far as being in a clean spot, it's got to be no humidity, and yeah, I guess that was a good idea.
What was the emphasis on the cleanliness of where he was cooking?
Well, like, remember when he talked about his signature was putting chili powder in his?
Yeah.
Well, that would have ruined it.
Right.
Ruined the whole batch. I've seen when they would steal the gas that was needed to make it. If they didn't clean the tank out, it would ruin everything. There's stuff like that. Yeah, you can't really make meth in some old barn where there's pigeons or rats running around in rafters knocking dust down into the pot, or it'll ruin it. And if it's ruined, it's ruined. You can't sell it.
Right.
But yeah, it had to be pretty clean.
So there was another scene where Jesse was trying to cook his own batch, and he kept throwing out the meth because it wasn't as pure as Walter's, and he couldn't get up to that standard where he wanted to be. What are your thoughts on that scene? Is it ever a good idea to throw out meth even if it's not the best, or?
Well, when people had their labs, when I was making it, when I was helping my buddy making stuff, for every pound of meth made, there was like, I don't know how many pounds, but 10, 20 pounds of sludge. That was just bad, really bad for the environment, and they'd be throwing it in their backyards, in creeks, and whatever. And that was one of the main reasons why they started cracking down on them, because of the sludge being thrown everywhere, and it's bad.
Yeah, big environmental issue there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So what stood out to you as the most iconic scene from season 1 where you're like, yes, they nailed it, that was 100% accurate?
Tuco was like the guy who, he was like some big dealers that I knew, but like multiplied by 10. So it's like any big time dealer could have been him. The real asshole pieces of shit, evil dealers that I ran across. Someone would come with his wife. Someone would go with his wife to buy some dope from the evil dealer, and because he requested it, and he wouldn't give him any meth until he let him have sex with his wife.
Wow.
And they would argue about it, but eventually he'd get his way, and that was a real piece of shit. And,
yeah.
Other piece of shit would I heard one when I was in jail after I got busted, and I knew him from years ago too, but he was in and out of prison, so I only got to run into him for a short time every 5-10 years,
Yeah.
because he was always institutionalized. But he was in jail with me, and he kept on saying that how he loved to shoot up young women for the first time, and them doing dope, to watch him do it,
Get them hooked.
and get him hooked, and to watch the expression on him, and he was a real piece of shit.
Right.
And while I was in there, he was going to get tested for testicular cancer, and he got cancer. So.
Wow.
So.
Karma got him.
Yeah, karma nailed his ass good.
So what was what would be the biggest scene or the biggest element that they got totally wrong?
Well, there was something about when Crazy 8 got killed, and he was actually the snitch.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who he set up Jesse to make him look like the snitch from that bust that happened. In reality, Crazy 8 was the snitch, and he snitched on his cousin, the one that initially got killed in that Walter White killed with the gas in the back. So there's this snitch thing going on, and they didn't explain it good enough, and
Right.
but it was something totally fake about that. Like, I don't know, it was just hard, and the fact that he grabbed that piece of plate and he was going to kill him with it. That's real.
Yeah.
That would have happened. But you would have thought he'd been just screaming his lungs out for
Yeah.
someone to come and help him, and he wasn't. But yeah, there was something all about about that whole situation, and then with him pulling the body out and of the camper when Walter's wife came by and all that. That was I don't know, that maybe that was really good writing. I mean, that is like, that couldn't have happened, or could it? I was kind of thinking, it was like that was good. That was a really good part, but was it the worst part? Was it the best part? I don't know, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
To see that, and that set the tone of how evil that it gave you a glimpse of how evil that Walter White could become.
Yeah.
A little bit, because I'm sure there's other ways around that. He could have done other things besides killing him. I'm not going to get into that because it's all just.
So did
what
you
if,
have
what
to sort of be almost two-faced like Walter White? Like, he had his good side and his evil side. Did you have to be able to flip that switch at any point during your time in it?
Yeah. I had to put on this. I had to act with all my clients, with all my buyers, and with everybody I was dealing with. That I wasn't going to say, I wasn't going to pretend that I'm some big tough guy, although I could hold my own. But there was a lot of tough guys out there. MMA was just starting out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was 35, 40 years old, so my fighting days were over. So I had to put on this act that I was very, very smart and very, very crazy,
Mm-hmm.
So, and combine them two, it kind of kept them at bay. It kind of,
Right.
and the fact that I always had the really good dope, and I was generous, and I was nice. So they, you had to keep them on their heels a little bit.
Yeah.
Is he going to be nice today? Is he going to be crazy? Is he nice? Is he crazy? Well, he's nice most of the time. No, he ain't.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the thing.
Okay. So almost kind of keeping yourself unpredictable.
Yeah.
Helped to keep you safe.
Yeah. But they knew that I, as far as they knew, that I hated the cops, and I was it was all about me against the cops, so that it made them feel safe that I wasn't a snitch. And
Right.
because there's face it, when dealers get caught and they are tricked or forced or asked to work for the force, for the police, how are they going to do it if they're on top?
Right.
Well, one way I would imagine, and I always took safeguards against this, is they will have one of their runners come in, and they give them the front, or they give them a big bag of meth, and then 2 hours later, when they're working with the cops, they'll say, "Hey, that meth I gave you? Well, my hook didn't turn up, and I got none. So why don't you come back, and I'll give you cash for it." And they're like, "Okay." So they come back and sell it back to them, and the cops don't care if it's if they just as long as they get the person on a buy.
Right.
And then that dealer does 3 people like that, or 4, or whatever, and pretty soon he gets to keep on selling, and the sacrificial lamb, I guess they call it.
Right.
So you had to be leery of that,
So what about the cooking process was correct or incorrect? Is there anything that they did terribly wrong or terribly well with how they portrayed it?
It was portrayed really, really close to the real thing. Like later on in the TV series when they have the super lab and all that stuff. I know nothing about that, but their small labs that they're using at the time, yeah, they had all the steps in place, kind of. It was kind of the same. The first time I saw it, I was clean for like a whole year, and it was triggering a little bit. I could still smell the smell. I could still taste the taste as I was watching this TV show, and yeah, all the names of the chemicals were all different, which was cool. It was kind of fun. The names that they came up with, or the triple epithene or whatever they called it. I don't know. Yeah, that's funny. That's really funny. But so yeah, but it was kind of cool to see him be the science geek, and be the science nerd, and talk about telling Jesse how, no, you don't heat it in that. Are you stupid? Haven't you ever heard my lectures when you were in high school? All that was such good TV. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good time. And then his brother-in-law Hank was fucking awesome. Cops are like that. So. But.
So were they cooking with an open flame in the show, right?
Yeah, that was funny. They're having they used an open flame, which is no, they never do that. I mean, people have. I've seen people do it.
But why?
Because it's so flammable. It's when you're cooking it and there's a pot of meth, and if you get an open flame anywhere near it, when it goes up, it's like you saw a jet-powered drag car.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, that's what it looks like. When that lights, it just shoots up right up to the ceiling like a jet, and it's hot as hell. And that's if you're stupid enough not to have a lid, you just put the lid on, it's out. I mean, but there's been people who haven't had a lid and burns the whole place down. One guy that I know, he's been clean for about 10 years, but they were doing it in a camper at a campground, and he was trying the product, and the flame chased the fumes to the pot, and it took off, and the door was here, and the place just was filled with this toxic gas or toxic smoke. And if one guy didn't say, "Move out of the way," and he grabbed it and threw it out the door, if he wouldn't have done that, he would have. They would have all died. But so he had burns on his arms, and the first time I found out about this, I went over to his house, the guy who grabbed it and threw it out, and I knocked on his door because I wanted to get some meth. I've known him since he was a little kid.
Right.
He was one of my old roommate's little brothers. So I'm knocking on the door, and his car's home, and I know he's home. So I'm looking in the window, and I see him laying on the couch. So I kept pounding on the door. I yelled for him. I said, "I can see you," So he comes to the door. He's all bandaged up. I said, "What the fuck happened to you?" And his first story was, he goes, "Well, me and my two buddies were out camping." He says, "We were camping, and they were out in the lake fishing in the canoe," and right away I'm going, "This fucker's full of shit,
Yeah.
You're so full of shit." And he goes, "No," and I was about to make supper, and I took a can of Coleman fuel, and I started putting it in my camp stove, and it was, I didn't know it, but it was paint thinner, and it just burst into flames, and I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Really?" I said, "It's a good story, but if you're gonna say it, leave out the part about the paint thinner. And I go, what really happened, man? He's like, that's what happened. So, so I knew he was full of shit, but he wasn't coming clean.
Right.
So about a few days later, his little sister, who also did meth. Everybody did meth.
Right.
Little sister come in the bike shop to pick up some inner tubes for their nephew's bikes or something, and I said, hey, what happened to Matt? Oh shit. What happened to your brother? And she says to me, she goes, oh, didn't you hear? I go, no, I seen the burns. I mean, I heard he got burned. And she goes, well, they were out camping, him and his two buddies, and when they were out fishing, he was making supper. I'm like, yeah, and he filled up the Coleman stove with Coleman fuel, and it started on fire, and it burnt him. And it was so funny because he left out the part about the paint thinner that I told him to. So it's like, I just laughed my ass off about that. But eventually I heard about the story,
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was funny.
How safe or dangerous was it to actually be cooking? Is there, a big chance that you could just blow up the whole house, or?
Well, there's a couple of answers for that question. Like, for one thing is, the fumes were so bad, like, they showed them wearing masks and stuff, and I've always had a little bit of asthma even when I was a little kid, so the fumes from the gas would make me cough. So I could hang in there with my partner, with a mask on, and not a big fancy mask like they had, but just a little
Like
mask.
a COVID mask,
like a
kinda?
like a COVID mask. And but when I would do that, all the other cooks would laugh at me like look at him, he has to wear a mask. They took it as like a rite of passage to wear, not having to wear a mask, and they thought it was really cool, and they would sit there and they would breathe them fumes in, and the partner that I had isn't doing very well. Throat cancer. I guess he's beating it, but it could have been from the fumes.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Who knows?
So the fumes are a massive issue when you're cooking.
Yeah, and then the people who did it, like every other day or whatever, they were losing a lot of weight. It looked like their skin was falling off their bones. They really looked unhealthy,
Right.
And their teeth were falling out of their mouth. And as far as blowing up, when they were making it, the way we made it was, the pot would blow up, but if you had that lid right close to it and you could put it on quick, it was fine. So the buddy I did it with, of course, he had nerves of steel. He never made a mistake. It turns out, he was also a stock car racer, so he was always a
Fitting.
But nerves of steel and stuff. So yeah, he was really good with that. And as far as blowing up, we would take it. The stuff that we were making, the pot, while we were heating it up, it changed colors, and when it got to a certain color, if it went over this color, it would blow up. So you wanted to take that to the right to the time where right before it blew up, because then when you did that, you take it off the heat, and then that was going to be the strongest meth that we could possibly make. So that was the thing. A lot of times, a lot of other cooks who weren't as good as my buddy, because they didn't have the nerve to bring it to the edge like that. And if you first of all, you'd see a little spark or something, and then that's when you'd put the lid on. But if you fumbled around the lid and it dropped on the ground, you're nervous, or you're sweaty and it slips out of your hands, or you've been up all night or for days and you're not thinking straight, it could go bad real fast.
Wow.
And then they'd fumble around, and then you'd have the jet engine again.
It almost sounds like a stick of dynamite, kind of metaphorically. You gotta burn the fuse down as low as it can possibly go before it hits that explosive.
Before you
cut it right there.
Go.
Yeah. That's scary.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good metaphor.
I think we're kind of running out of time for today, but what would you like to talk about next time?
Well, I will give you a bit of a teaser for our next episode, and it's about. I think I want to talk about how everybody would rip everybody off, and at first, when everybody was on the up and up, it was more fun, of course. But then greed takes over, and tolerance goes up, and people are losing their jobs. Tolerance goes up. The need for it becomes greater. People start to get more shady because they don't have a job. They got all day to think about ways to rip people off. So the first time, which I was blown away when someone explained it to me, but this other guy, he would cook it for you if you brought him the pills, and then he would give you half the yield. So if someone would bring him, like, let's say 1,600 pills, and then they would say, well, you can leave and we'll have it for you tomorrow, or you can stay, but if you stay, you're going to be here 6 hours. So the one time when I was there watching, and I really didn't know what was going on until it was explained to me, but two guys that I knew were making this batch for this guy, and he chose to stay there in the garage for the 6 hours because it wasn't, the pills weren't his. Someone else collected the pills and gave them to him, so he was the guy that knew the guys that I knew. So he brought the pills to him, and so he wasn't gonna risk getting ripped off. So he decided to stay there for the whole 6 hours, right? So the scam went like this. The two guys are doing the first part. It's a 2-part cook, and they use all his pills, they grind them all up, and then they start making it. And the one guy goes, "What the fuck did you do?" And the other guy goes, "What? Oh, you fucked it up. Oh my God, I can't believe it. You fucked the whole batch up." And this guy that brought the pills is like, "What the fuck's going on?" He goes, "Well, oh fuck, yeah, he got it too hot, and we got this ruined batch here, but we did manage to pull out, managed to make this much, which was a tenth of what he was supposed to get."
Right.
And I'm going, and he's going, "Sorry, dude, but you can take this sludge with, but it's no good, and we fucked it up, So I was watching, the guy goes, "Oh fuck, I'm dead. I'm fucking dead." Because those weren't my pills, and I'm fucking sorry, what's he gonna do? Call the cops?
Yeah.
So he was all fucking bummed out. He got his little bag of meth and he walked out, and I'm going, shit, man, that sucks, to my two buddies, and they're like, "Is he gone yet? Is he gone yet?" And they took that batch of ruined stuff and put it back in the pot and
kept going,
whipped it up, and that's how they ripped them off.
Oh man!
So now they got all this dope for free.
Yeah, and I'm sure many other things like that happen too. So
yeah,
we'll hear about that next
episode.
episode.
Yeah, we'll hear about the many times that I got ripped off and other people got ripped off, and it's interesting for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. I got to tell you that doing meth and living the life is crazy. You don't want to do it. Being addicted to meth is very serious. It's hard to quit. If you get clean, and the success rate to be clean a year later is 5%. The success rate to be clean 2 years later, to still clean and sober, is 2%. That's why you'll see people with a big 2% on their hands or tattooed on them. They're basically claiming that they made it, as 2%. But there's a lot of people who are got a tattoo on their hand that says 2%, but they're out there at it again because they relapsed. It's a really hard drug to to get clean from. My advice is don't do it, and if you did, seek professional help. It can be done. I'm living proof of it. I live a great life now. We will get into that in future episodes. We will go through my how I recovered, and it's going to be a good journey. Thank you. If you have any questions that you want to ask me, or if you just want to leave a like or subscribe, do it. We'll see you later.